Okay, hello guys. My name's Laura, and I'll be presenting the Madrid article alongside Veronica. Okay, so to start with the background information, so we will discuss social and urban changes over the years that have led to the transformation of Madrid's social morphology. So these main transformations will be seen due to the increase in social inequity, which we will discuss later, as well as the spatial segregation within Madrid. And just to refresh, segregation in urban studies is viewed as the residential separation of different social or ethnic racial groups from a broader population within cities. And the determining factor in the analysis of the segregation process is the effect on individuals, especially in terms of like delinquency, lower education, and unemployment. So an important factor that helps to distinguish different social groups leading to social segregation, believed by some researchers, is the neighborhood effect. And this is the differentiating attributes of the individuals who settle in a given area, which could be considered a negative effect. So this means that neighborhoods either have a direct or indirect effect on individuals' behaviors. And it is not clear that social structure is immediately reflected in the way different types of households settle in urban space. Okay, so the distribution in space of the social categories make up the term social space, as we know. So this can be measured by average housing price, types of cars used by the residents, or general consumption patterns in the area, as well as median income of urban areas. This also just helps to yield a social score, or it can be called a social value of space. So there are three spatial levels to distinguish cities from rural areas. So first would be the Madrid urban region. This comprises of like the province of Madrid with, I believe it's like 6.5 million people and around like 800,000 square kilometers, I believe, in 2010. So of course there's the metropolitan area in the municipality, as well as the center of the metro area, which I believe has around 3.3 million people at the time. And the region has grown, of course, considerably since then. So there has been, oops, I accidentally moved all this. There has been a transformation from an industrial to a post-industrial society. So this has been caused by employment changes, which is the main driving force of socioeconomic transformations within Madrid. So Madrid has been significantly impacted as well by globalization, which has caused the decline in the industrial sector, and then a big growth seen due to new technologies such as like insurance, better communication, transportation, by like Spanish technology companies. So Madrid is now known for its innovation, their great workplaces and productivity, and due to this, this has also caused the industrial decline. So more houses have been built, and there's been a great rise in construction due to the need for more infrastructure. And the growth in the construction industry stopped around 2008. This and many other things led to a financial crisis, which can kind of be seen in the charts here as there's a decline in some of the different areas. But so overall, there has been an expansion in upper categories like managers and professionals, shown on the chart. So as you can see here, There's the salaried professionals and technicians has increased to 2010, as well as directors and managers. So this shows how there's a greater inequality in social structure due to income or salary distribution. So since the directors and managers' salary increased, lower socioeconomic categories actually increased too due to the scarcity of skilled workers. So a greater gap has been created overall between the middle and upper class in terms of salary. This could be due to increase in secondary education and graduates. So this has caused an unequal distribution of wealth to rise greatly in recent years. Okay, so these changes impact the urban landscape, of course, due to recent economic growth in Madrid from around 2000 to 2007. And many changes have been made, but of course, segregation has still persisted. Social inequality has increased in many European cities as well. Other factors like social exclusion linked to residential exclusion and overcrowding continues to cause segregation. It's interesting to note that a social mix has been seen to favor interaction and social networks between different social groups, as well as high segregation of certain groups can cause worse conditions in social terms. And some of the key processes that underlie changes in segregation and the social restructuring of the Madrid metro area, which is closely related to socioeconomic and urban processes, which are the occupational categories and the immigrant status.
So between 1991 and 2001, there is a high increase of high status professionals and high civil servants moving into Madrid, the metropolitan area. And in a lot of cases, they are moving into areas with a bit of a lower income population. So increasing purchasing power of higher status professionals increase inequity and segregation. So they come into these places, and a lot of times, even though there's a more diverse group of people, there is not so the settlement pattern of higher status professionals. So between 1991 and 2001, the Madrid metropolitan area saw a high increase of people who are high civil servants. So people who basically had a higher income than the rest of the current population that was there. So this increased the purchasing power of higher status professionals, but with this also the increase of inequity and segregation began to occur. Changes in the population distribution are attributed to economic and residential expansions that were happening. So many communities began to integrate parties with higher and lower incomes during this time. This, though, did not improve the living conditions, nor did it improve most people from higher status and lower status, if you will, did not really mingle, and they still were fairly closed off from each other, even though they lived in similar areas or in the exact same areas. So that makes society more closed off for those in a lower income bracket, in part due to gentrification, so services being out of their price range and inaccessible. So census tracts is an important part in the article. So census tracts are specific geographical relationships that have been divided in part using population. These divides are made to collect data. Census results in 2001 found that segregation was decreasing. There are 3 suggestions given for this decrease. So spaces are integrated, as I said before, between higher and lower income individuals. Both groups are not integrated into society. So what that means is a lot of times, yes, everybody is living within a certain area or a certain like region, but a lot of the services are out of the price point of people with lower income. So they're just inaccessible. They can't access them. They're too out of their price point. And this just creates more of a segregation between the two groups. The second is intergenerational social mobility and familial units residing within a certain radius. So what those two mean, so by integrated social mobility, it's meant to mean that socioeconomic status that children will achieve in comparison to their parents. So it basically means will their socioeconomic status increase or decrease? And with familial units residing within a certain radius, typically, as it was stated in the article, immigrant families would stay very, very close together. So nobody would really stray very far outside. They would stay within the kind of same community, same geographical area. So immigration. Immigration increased substantially between 1996 and 2007. Improved social conditions meant that many service positions were undesirable for residents. Many immigrants took these jobs instead. Many immigrants lived in fairly deteriorated areas or on the outskirts of more affluent areas. Changes in the early 2000s increased rental housing and later facilitated higher purchasing rates. Even with the higher purchasing rates, many still rented parts of their home. So what that means is that many people would typically have a group living there. So maybe like one family unit, and then they would rent out to typically other immigrants rooms in the house to be able to afford the house. So overcrowding is common amongst immigrant household due to the rental situation and the living conditions. So like I mentioned previously, even though they would purchase housing, they would typically add in a lot more people to rent out different rooms in order to be able to afford that. So segregation is in decline, but overcrowding poses a new issue. So there's just a lot of issues with the housing. Immigrant households on average have larger households than long-term residents of Madrid. So you can actually see that on the chart to the side over here. So basically what this shows is that foreigners, so immigrants in this case, have a much higher, so they tend to have much higher household sizes than people who are in comparison to the total population. So housing shortages are now a prime concern for newcomers in Madrid. Regardless of the area, housing is typically in poor condition, and intermingling between people who have immigrated and locals, so typically this would be the high civil servants, is sparse. So concluding thoughts. So economic growth is linked to social changes occurring in Madrid during 1981 and 2007, increasing diversity due to immigration and higher population of higher income workers in Madrid. Inequality does not equal an increase in segregation. So the two are different kind of issues. Though inequality might be high, segregation may not be. Decrease in segregation is in part due to changes made in both housing and social mixing, but this does not necessarily mean that housing has been bettered or that living conditions are better. Inequality and other social issues may be at an increase. Decreasing segregation, as I've implied, does not imply that social issues such as overcrowding and housing is lower. So thank you for watching our presentation.